So welcome to Unit 15, Coping with Change, Employability Skills Level 1. So for the first one, we're looking at question 1, which is all about change, planned change, and giving an example of, what a planned change in an organisation could look like. So the question says, give an example of the change that can happen in the place of work for each of the following. And it says the first one is planned change. So this is your sheet that you should have, which should say coping with change. So what is a planned change? A planned change could be the restructure of an organisation, which could cause you to have to relocate your job or do a new job. A second example could be a company takeover. The change would be you may have to work to new rules and regulations. Another example of change that could happen would be implementing new technology, bringing new technology in. That could mean that you have to learn a new way of working, get to grips with new technology. Another example would be government policies. So, for example, we had a government policy come into effect called GDPR, which changes the way that we use and store data. We've also had government policies around things like pollution, and that dictates how we get rid of waste and toxic waste and things like that. So think about a planned change that can happen in the workplace and how that will take effect. So don't just say, oh, the planned change would be government policy. You have to say how that might affect somebody. So the effect would be they may have to think of a different way to store data, for example, if you're using GDPR as an example. So remember, with this one, you have to say what the change is. So if you're using the restructure of an organisation, that's the change. And how will it affect somebody? They may have to relocate or they may have to do a new job. So that would be a full rounded answer. So if you say what the change is and how that will affect somebody. If you're using the company takeover one, that's the change. And then how it will affect somebody would be, well, they may have to learn new rules and regulations if they're being taken over by a new company. They may have to get used to a different way of working. Yeah. So you have to say what the change is and what the effect it would have on somebody working there. Okay, so let's move on to the second part, which is the unplanned change. So now you need to come up with an example of unplanned change. And again, you only need one example for each. So say, for example, an unplanned change might be what? If you was working at an airport, what if there was a terrorist threat? Okay, that's an unplanned change. Nobody can predict that. So it may change the way you work. It may change the way security is put into operation. So another example of unplanned change would be, say, we had a cyber attack or a data breach. So what impact would that have? So the company might have to shut down, or the company might have to review the way it handles data and information. Another unplanned change could be there could be a major accident at work. What impact would that have? Well, it could change processes and procedures. It could mean that a piece of equipment is taken out of use. So again, that would be something that is unforeseen. Another one, an example could be, what if there was a power cut? You lost electricity or something like that. What's the impact? It could cause you to be relocated to another site. Or you may have to do some other duties or even get sent home if there's a power cut. So that, again, that's an unplanned change. Another example of an unplanned change could be staff sickness. That could change the way that you do your job, because if you've got a staff shortage, not enough people to help you to do your job, that could change. So, it could mean that some part of that production is not done, or it could mean that you don't do that piece of work for that day and you have to do something else. So there is a change there. So again, always be thinking of the impact. So don't just say what the change is. Don't just put staph sickness. Yeah. I want you to really think about the impact that might have. So you could say staph sickness. This could lead to somebody not being able to do their job, or it could lead to somebody having to do something else, somebody having to be relocated. It will cause some impact, some change. So you need to explain that. And we just need one example for each. So one example for planned change and one example for unplanned change. And that's question 1. So question 2, I'm going to go into question 2 now. So question 2, it says, provide 3 examples of why change might happen in a place of work. For this activity, you are required to relate your answer to current affairs. As such, please research using local and national information about business news. So for this one, you can look at what's happening locally. So that will be in and around this area. Or you could look at what's happening nationally or even internationally. So it's very wide open. If you put in some internet searches, you could probably go back from as far as the beginning of 2019. And you will find a lot of things that have impacted business in the last year. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. So, Brexit. Again, don't just put Brexit. That wouldn't be a full answer. So, a fully rounded answer could be introducing Brexit could mean that people who are not British nationals could leave the country. This could lead to staff shortages in some areas, such as hospitality and things like that. So a full rounded answer wouldn't just be the Brexit. You have to say what impact that might have. So you could say this would lead to non-British nationals leaving the country and resulting in staff shortages. Okay. We've got, if we want to look at local examples, we've got stores such as Maplin's, Toys R Us have closed down in the last year or so. And what was the impact of that? You could say, well, this is due to competition from online stores. And it just means that people have to shop online or elsewhere for those type of goods. Another one is we saw Thomas Cook go into administration in 2019. What impact does that have? It means that there's been losses of jobs in the holiday industry, and those staff will have to find employment elsewhere. I've got another example. We've got shops such as Sports Direct taking over House of Fraser. Staff may have to work under different rules because that's another organisation coming in to take over another one organisation. We have Laura Ashley has closed their stores, so what's the impact of that? Staff will have to be made redundant and they'll have to find work elsewhere. So again, that's an impact of Laura Ashley closing down. Another thing that I found when I did some research was the owner of Topshop was accused of bullying and sexual harassment. This could lead to bad publicity, and it could lead to a change in profits. For example, if an organisation is resulting in bad publicity, the profits could potentially change there. Obviously, because of the another example would be the Grenfell tragedy. The way cladding is put on new buildings has now changed, so that has an impact on people who work in the building industry and how they put cladding on buildings and the type of cladding that they have to use. So that's another good example. And of course, the most topical example of the moment is the outbreak of the COVID-19, which is a coronavirus. It's caused a lot of workplaces to change the way they work. And the impact of that is that a lot of people have to now work from home, and they have to be set up working from home and get to grips with technology and being online and moving parts of their business online. So again, I've given you quite a few. I've given you at least 8 or 9 examples, and you only have to give 3 try to come up with your own examples. Try to think of changes that you've noticed that are going around in the business news. You could always Google that. So, question 3, which looks like this with these circles. So for this one, you will need your sheet, which you should have received with your workbook. And all you need to do for this one is to put in all the 6 different stages of changes in the boxes. So, for example, I would start on the first one, this one or this one, and that would be the first one, which would be pre-contemplation. You just need to write pre-contemplation, and then in the second box you would write contemplation. The third one you would write preparation. The fourth one you would write action. The fifth one you would write maintenance stage, and the last stage, which is relapse. And that's all you need to do for this question. You don't need to write all the explanations there. If you just write the heading in each of the circles, that is enough for this module. Okay, so I'm going to go on to question 4. So question 4 says, give 2 examples of how people might react to change at different points within the process. So we know what all the processes are. We know we've got 6 processes, 6 stages of change. So I'm going to give examples for each one, but you only need to give 2. So, and also it's really good if you can think of your own as well. So pre-contemplation. So somebody who is in pre-contemplation stage, they're not thinking about change at this stage in their life, but they may be forced to think about change. Change could be forced upon them. So take a moment to think about how you would feel if change was forced upon you in the workplace. Say, for example, it was just announced that you were going to get made redundant. So you may feel a little bit resentful about that. So think about how you would feel. You might feel upset. You might feel anxious. You might feel scared. You may feel, just like I said before, maybe frustrated or resentful. Contemplation stage. This is where you may be seeking more help, because you are thinking of different options now. So you're really starting to think about change in the contemplation stage. So you may need to seek more help. You may need, to try different options. Let's have a look at the contemplation stage. So it says in the explanation here that the person is thinking about change and some aspect of their working life. It could be thinking about going to for some kind of help or support, some training, searching for information, or it may be making a complaint, or it could be thinking about leaving your job. At this stage, it's just a thought, but it's important to note that it is the start of any change. So when you're at the start of something, you tend to feel quite fearful and quite anxious as well. So let's look at the preparation stage now. So if you think about the preparation stage, people may be feeling more determined because they know that they're going to have some kind of change, and they're really determined. They're quite fired up. So at that stage, they will have more energy, and they will probably need to conserve their energy as well, because they're really gearing up and preparing. They may be trying out new options, and it could be that they have to move departments. They may have to change managers, so they're really thinking about what they need to do. And during the preparation stage, the person is making preparations. So like I said before, that's when they're going to need the most energy. They're going to be the most fired up at this stage. Okay, so let's look at the 4th stage, which is the action stage. People at this stage may be more tired or more drained because they are taking action now, and this is where they're going to use all of their personal resources. So at this stage, somebody might feel a bit drained, and low on energy. Okay, so in the maintenance stage, people may be feeling maybe stressed, as this is the point where they need extra support, and they're really trying to maintain that change. And let's have a look at what it says here. It says, now that the action has been taken, they will need to maintain their well-being, their emotions and behaviour, and as it may be difficult to manage. To maintain themselves at this stage requires the right type of motivational support, and they need to be mindful that there is a temptation to drop any action, because it's new and it's always quite difficult. So they may be feeling quite frustrated. They may be feeling like they're separated from their colleagues. It says here that they may be going through new processes and procedures. So again, they may be finding it quite difficult at this stage. The maintenance stage is definitely where they may need extra support, because they will be feeling that extra stress. So the last stage, which is the relapse stage, this is where the person goes back to their original position or job, or the original situation that they were in before they started to change. So this is sometimes when they try something new and it doesn't work out, and then they relapse back. So this is all part of the process, and also the person may be feeling like they failed in some way, or be feeling like a failure. So this stage is where the person needs to build their resilience, because at this stage they may be feeling quite low, and they may feel, because they haven't achieved what they wanted to achieve, they may be feeling anxious, they may be feeling frustrated, they may be feeling down. So that might be how they might be feeling, because the change hasn't worked out the way that they wanted it to. Okay, so on question 5, it says, give 2 examples of tools or methods which may help individuals to cope with change. So if you think about it from a work perspective, what could be done in a workplace to help somebody cope with change? So it could be regular meetings or training sessions. It could be appointing them a mentor or a buddy to get through that period of change. It could be giving them some support through coaching sessions. It could be telephone helplines, questionnaires and feedback form, giving employees the opportunity to feedback and to have some say in the process could also help them to cope with some change. Giving them clear instructions and guidelines and information. So say, for example, someone was going to be made redundant, giving them some very clear guidelines and instructions as to what's going to happen could help them to cope with that change. You could set up regular one-to-ones with your manager. That would help somebody if they know what's going on, or having regular discussions with the HR, Human Resources department could also help. So I hope this video helps, and please do drop me any questions if you have any.